Okay, everyone. Sorry, perhaps we'll get going so as to not to waste too much time. Thank you for joining us this afternoon as we consider this very important issue. It's rather long, so I'm actually going to read it out as to where we're going. And the focus this afternoon is, as you may know, what does the dignity of life and the care of the elderly look like? And in a fast-aging society, how can we be part of the solution to create an ecosystem of well-being to love and care our seniors, and care for our seniors? Okay, I'm David. I'm going to be the moderator today, and I'm going to try and get everything going, and hopefully it'll all go smoothly. But before I move on, perhaps where we can start off would be, I'd like to introduce the panel. I mean, some of you may know them already, but wow, it's raining. Yes, so perhaps I could start with Victor. Victor, do you mind introducing yourself and your organization that you represent, and perhaps just give us a little about what you do, the organization does?
Okay, sure. Okay, good afternoon. My name is Victor, and I actually is the one that is running the St. Theresa's Home. For those who do not know St. Theresa's Home, in my era, if you know the Little Sisters of the Poor, that is where the home is being situated. Okay, currently we have about 200 elderly residents. We have about 100 males and 100 females. It's a nursing home, and what we are doing now is actually to look after them. And sad to say, okay, everybody has this thought that nursing home probably is the end of your chapter, but in St. Theresa's Home is a bit different. Okay, we will put the life of each individual resident to their best capability. For those who are wheelchair bound, if they are able to do some work, we allow them to do like laundry work. Okay, for those who are walking with assistance, they can also help in many ways, like they can also feed those who are unable to eat. Okay, the last category probably are those bedridden, and this is actually the group that always have been missed out by many, because what they do is just lie in bed and look at the ceiling. So further down the road, I will probably explain as what we can do to give dignity of life to this group of people in the home.
Thanks a lot, Victor. Yep, a brief start. Don't worry, you will have an opportunity. The reason why, actually, before I hand off to the other panelists to introduce themselves, the reason why we were trying to get all of you to come down is the panelists would actually like to hear from you as well. I understand that it's an exchange of ideas as well. They could tell you what they do, but ultimately, if it's a sharing and an exchange of ideas, ultimately, everybody benefits. You learn from them and they learn from you. So that's why we were trying to say, don't be too far away, come and share with us so we can have a roundtable discussion like it was.
So you can still come down.
Yes, still, so it's just a chat, and that's what we're hoping to achieve. So, okay, perhaps I'll now move on to...
Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Yai. I'm from Montfort. I think Samuel, my CEO, has did a presentation of our organization. But since the track is on elderly, I just share a bit about what we do. In Montfort. We provide, I think, a suite of services to cater for elderly who are very, very active. So yes, and the young old like me, yeah, all the way to elderly who are actually dying. So my role as a Chief Purpose Officer is I must make sure my people work and achieve the purpose of those whom the world reject must move us the most. So in our organization, majority are social workers, counselors, caseworker. We are looking at how in this changing landscape, how can we better meet the needs of our elderly.
Thank you very much. So last but not least, I will invite Noel from SSVP to introduce himself and perhaps just give us some background.
Yeah, hi. So my name is Noel. I'm currently the Vice President for SSVP Singapore, so it's the National Council. SSVP is represented in most churches, so we've got about 29 conferences across. And what we do is kind of interesting. We actually cover everything from cradle to grave. And so elderly is a part of it. Yeah. It so happens that a lot of people that we do journey with, that we do help, are the elderly. But we actually cover the whole thing. And our purpose is actually quite simple. It used to be very long before, right? Like 2 pages long, and it was hard to remember what our purpose was. So we shortened it down to really kind of growing in holiness through living and serving those in need. And so the those in need is what we talked about in terms of, that ecosystem of care needed for the entire spectrum, in terms of people all the way from babies to all the way to actually to grave almost. But now we don't have grave, so it's to crematorium. But that's what we do. I think the learning has been quite amazing, which we will talk about later on. And we try as best as we can to give as much of ourselves. And while money is a piece of it, it's not all of it. A lot of it is through volunteers. So unlike Montfort Care, where you have a lot of employees, we have about 750 volunteers. So we're a volunteer-run organization. Across Singapore, we help something like about 3,000 some families. And that number is growing. Yeah, so it's also my chance to kind of sell the organization, because we'll always need help. So for those of you who feel inspired after this talk, please come see me, because we could always use help. Yeah.
He's not shy, as you can tell. So none of them are. So before we get into the discussion proper, what we're going to do now is to have a little poll, which Yai and Micki will help us with, because I'm completely hopeless with all this computer stuff. And so they'll show you how to do it. And if I could just hand off to Micki, maybe, to take you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Micki, and I'm from Montfort Care, Associate Lead Social Workers. So today, there's a lot of things that we talk about, and really the context is very wide. So to kind of set some context, so we actually have this Kahoot. It's actually to facilitate more conversations, and hopefully after that we can have more discussion with the panel. Yeah. So may I trouble everybody? Just take out your handphone, just scan the QR code, or you can key in the game pin. And we'll just play some games and some questions that we will ask everybody. Right? Maybe we'll give a bit of time to have everybody in. I guess this is one of the events that you can take out your phones, and you don't have to ask to switch off your phone. Okay, we don't have the music, because if not, then it will go. Tung, 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 tung. Oh, you'll play? Sorry? If you have challenge accessing the QR code, what you can do is to just go to the website, kahoot.it, and you can just key in a pin, and it should lead you to this page. You can give yourself a nickname or key in your actual names, no issues. Because at the end of the day, there's no game, no presents, no gift. It's just mainly for discussion purpose. All right. Oh, I saw a heart. That's interesting. Oh, Young at Heart. Not sure whether you all know, Montfort actually has a program called Young at Heart. It's a program where we promote volunteerism among seniors, and after going through certain programs, we actually did a mindset shift. So from maybe an elderly that stays at home, they experience the community by going through a series of programs, and after that they contribute back to the community. So that's Young at Heart, and mainly looking at seniors age 50 and above. You can go to our website if you have friends, relatives that might be interested. Oh, still A. Samuel, same name as my boss. Okay, I think everybody is almost in. Anyone still need a bit more time? If not, I think we are good. Oh, okay. Just a little while. Okay, I guess most of us are ready. So you can sit down, relax if you are ready. Enjoy the aircon. I know that the weather is quite bad outside. When I will come into this room, I was like, wow, aircon. Okay, I guess everybody is in and I will just start the first question. Alright. Kahoot at home. Okay, the icebreaker quiz. Okay, are you ready? The first question goes, okay, we'll just understand a bit about the needs for our seniors. So the first question is, let's make a guess. Who are elderlies? Okay, you got the options. A, age 65 and above. People who are retired, people age 50 and above, and people who stop playing. I guess different organizations have different ways of defining elderly. So let's see. Most of us choose age 65 and above. Anyone have other suggestions? It seems like most of us here feels that aging is about chronological, how we look at it is a number. So any other participants here has different opinions or ideas about how we look at elderly or any other ways? Okay, so Victor says there's a young elderly and a old elderly, so that's another way. Okay, from where I studied gerontology. So in our lectures, it's mentioned that other than looking at it from a chronological way, there's actually things like what we call the functional age. So you might age 80, but you can jump and run and play like a young teenager. So that's another way that we look at elderly. We also have something like called the social age. So how people perceive you and interact with you give the feeling of how old you are. So that's another way. So in view of time, I give you the answer, okay? Since it's first questions. All right, let's move on. Anyone got other opinions or other views? Okay, this is very good, very shy group. Maybe later, I think we got to ask more questions. Okay, let's see who got it first. BBT. Is that bubble tea? All right, let's move on then. So as we know, the theme has been dignity. So I think Vaga Robin has just now mentioned what does it mean by dignity. So we also look at what does it mean then in terms of dignity again. Let's see the results. Ding ding! Yay! You got it. I think you pay attention just now during your early sessions. Yeah, so I think it's just different way of expressing, and I think one of part is how we love, hopes, and giving care, right? All right, thank you. Oh, next is yellow. It's our favorite color. Okay, next. Thank you. So dignity is about respecting and giving autonomy regardless of social economic status. True or false? Ding ding. Wait, 20 seconds, and yeah, majority of us agree on this. I guess this is also one of the mention, like low income, regardless whether you're rich, poor, where do you live, or like whether you live in a condominium or a one-room rental flat, or even rough sleepers. It doesn't mean that you are deprived from dignity. Right? Thank you. Da-da-da-da. Okay, bubble tea, BBT went up top again. Next. What might affect the dignity of a person? Social economic status, physical stage, mental stage, or above? All above, yeah. So all are these factors that will contribute to how we perceive dignity and also how we feel about dignity, right? Thank you. Yay, BBT and yellow is still leading. Dignity is a condition and can be taken away based on other people's behavior. So true or false? Okay, this is an interesting one. Let's see. Wow. Okay. Most of us agree true, and there's 12 of us says no. So yeah, and myself has also went through a bit of discussion whether this is possible. You want to say something? No. Okay. You want to say something like maybe from those who say you disagree with the statements? Any thoughts, or like why do you choose false? From the floor? Or you need more time to think? Anybody from maybe this side of the hall? So the question is like, dignity is a condition and can be taken away by someone's behavior. Yep, you want to share? Yep, totally agree. That's true. Yeah. So that's the dilemma that we are not dilemma, but also how we look at things and also how we explain things. Yeah. So that's one perspective. Do anyone have additional things to add with regards to whether it can be taken away or based on other people's behavior? No? So okay, thank you. Then we moved on. Right. Maybe later during the panel discussion, we can actually discuss more about the questions. Okay, does dignity contribute to well-being? How does dignity contribute to well-being? Yeah, most of us got it correct by promoting respect and autonomy. So later during the panel discussion, we will hear from our distinguished guests that how in their respecting centers and programs that they promote respects and also the ability to choose within their own small circles. Yeah. Thank you. And last but not least, dignity is inherent and worth of all human beings is irrespective of where they stay or their residence. True or false? Yes, true. So, like later in the panel discussion, we will have Yai who share very much in the community how we promote dignity, and we also have Victors who very much share about the nursing home setting. So, and Victor has also the community's so-called front end experience as well. So with that, thank you very much. Let's see who's the winner. Is that one? Is it yellow and BPT? Dudu. Third place. Yes. TT. All different. Ta-da! BPT. Yeah. Thank you everybody. So this is just icebreaker. I'll hand over the mic back to David. Thank you, David.
Okay, everyone. Yeah, very interesting. Still haven't figured out how to do that myself, but yeah, one day. But moving on from there, I mentioned earlier that we would be opening up the floor to questions and perhaps comments. But could I suggest that we will do this right at the end? So what we'll do is we'll allow the panel speakers to speak, discuss the various topics, and at the end of our discussion, then we'll see how much time we have left, and we can go for as long as we have until the discussion is over. So the first question perhaps that we could start with, given the varied responses we saw there, or the views you all expressed, these are perceptions that we have, and our panel here have working with the elderly all the time would actually be able to allow us an insight from the elderly's perspective as to how they perceive themselves. So I'd like to invite panel members to let us know, perhaps from their respective organizations, how the elderly actually perceive themselves, and perhaps how the various challenges that they may have affect this perception and impact on their dignity, as it were. So challenges, perhaps it could be physical, it could be financial, it could be anything. And then perhaps another final area they could share with us is, how does society, how do we all actually perceive the elderly? So I think these three areas, if we could, perhaps Victor, you want to start us off there? Thank you.
Okay, so I will just elaborate a little bit more on what happens actually at a nursing home in terms of the dignity of life. Okay, I believe that many of us have this thought in when I first joined the nursing home, is that the nursing home itself is actually the end of life space, or the end of life area where I'm going in and just to wait for my time to come. But I must say that actually the concept is totally wrong. Okay, in the nursing home where I am currently running, the residents that come in, what I will do is, number one, we talk about the dignity of life that each resident will receive. We respect their wishes. We allow them to do as many things as possible. And in fact, we will only assist the resident to the bare minimum. Okay, so I give you an example. Okay, I tell you a short story about Father Forsion. If for many of you who have known Father Forsion, okay, he's an old priest that actually, when I know him, he was the priest of the Holy Spirit. Then after that, he was a priest in St. Francis Xavier. Okay, before he comes into the home, he called me up and said, "Victor, my priesthood life is coming to an end. I'm coming into your home, and that's it." I said, "Father, when you come into the home, it's not the end of your priesthood life." But he just brushed me off. He says, "Not possible." So what happened on the day when he was admitted? Okay, he has his own room. From day one, after he has been admitted, after I brought him around to see the various places, the first thing I started him off was to say the daily mass, so that him involved in his profession. So every morning at 8 o'clock, he will be the priest that say the mass for the entire home, for all the Catholics. After the mass, he will have his breakfast, and after breakfast, he will have his own personal time. Okay, at 10 o'clock, he has to do a little bit of rehab, which he needs to walk a bit. And from 11 to 12, he conducts spiritual classes for residents or for the staff that needs to see him. After lunch, he has his normal routine, his private prayer time. And by about 3, 4 o'clock, okay, he comes down to the resident and he starts to talk to them, fellowship with them. They would take him up to dinner time, and then after dinner, he rests. So it is a complete day of work like his priestly ministry. So on days where there are big occasions, like towards Easter, he will actually comes in to help me with confession. Okay. He also will help me to do anointing of the sick for those who are almost going off. He also will listen not only to confession within the resident as well as for the staff. So from the point of view, nursing home is not actually the end for his life. And he was actually surprised by the amount of work that I actually put forth for him to do. And that actually gives him the dignity of life as a priest. And he literally worked until his last few years when he was actually bedridden until the age of 93. So actually itself, the residents in the home, we do provide that dignity of life for you to carry on. Okay, like I said earlier, what about those? Okay, for those who are actually wheelchair bound, who are able to walk, there are many things you can do. Okay, you can actually help us to feed those who are unable to eat. For those who are wheelchair bound, they can also be leaders in their own way. For those who are able to cook, we have actually cooking lessons every Wednesday where all the residents actually will gather. So if you are you're someone who likes to prepare food, you can cut the vegetables. For someone who likes to cook, you cook, and after that, the entire ward will share the meal. Okay. So for these people, there is life. There is a dignity of life that you continue to live as who you are and what you want to do. Now I come to the bedridden. Okay. The bedridden are always the one that have been left out. Why? Okay. Number one, you are always in bed. Okay, you are in bed because you had multiple strokes. You have a heart attack that sometimes it damages you. But most of the time, actually, the triple stroke. Sometimes they have triple stroke, and they are really bad. Okay, but they are still alive. They are still, I would say, the alert. The only thing is that they can't move from point A to point B. And this is the group that always have been left just to look at the ceiling. So what we do is, okay, sometimes you probably prop them up to see the front, but that's about it. So coming down, it took me a while to realize that there must be something to be done for such people. To them, what is life? I'm in bed all the time. I only see the ceiling once a while. Yes, if the nurse is kind enough for me to see my fellow bedmates beside me, that's all. So actually, we were the first home to introduce horse therapy. Okay, we had horse therapy initially, but during that time, it was those big horses that comes in. Right? So the beginning of this year, we decided to talk to Equal Up, and they brought in actually the British Shetland ponies, very small ponies. Okay, so we started off with these ponies that goes to those bedridden. Okay, the first thing for these people is, number one, the home thinks about me. Otherwise, all the while I've been lying in my bed, the nurses passes by, yes, they clean me up, they feed me, that's about it. But today, when they bring the ponies to me, number one, they remember me. Secondly, they allowed me to feel the ponies physically. Thirdly, I'm able to be recognized that I'm still in the home. That is the part. Because as a person that is totally bedridden, okay, I always tell my nurses, they are also human beings. So it's not just that because they can't do anything, your daily routine is wash them, feed them, that's about it. You can talk to them, you can actually converse with them, make friends, ask them. So there are many things you can do for those bedridden. So we started off with this pony therapy, which in fact many of the bedridden are actually happy. Because now they realize that they are not alone. There are people that still bring ponies for them. They are being recognized as members of the home, and the nurses are there. The second part that we want to do for this bedridden is we call the aromatherapy, which we have actually engaged. Okay, this is also something good for those, especially for those who have very poor vision. Okay, they won't be able to see the horses, they won't be able, but they are able to smell as well as the touch from the therapies. It is also good for the skin because of the oil. At the same time, there's a sense of bonding. Okay, for someone that you lie in bed or you meet every day as the nurse comes in, uncle, we bathe you, uncle, we feed you, that's about it, But now we have these therapies that comes in and say, uncle, I'm going to just massage your hand, I'm going to massage your leg, I'm going to do all this. And this is also indirectly therapeutic and also good for the body. So with these two events that we have started in St. Theresa's home, we hope to actually let the residents, especially those who are in this position, the bedridden, who feel that they have been actually socially isolated, to give them the feeling that they are being loved. We are looking after you, we are giving you what you need. So this is roughly the program. And that's just to add a little bit more, is that, okay, the home actually, we take in a lot of referrals from the hospital because we are partially funded by Ministry of Health. Okay, but the funding is only 70%, and the other 30% are actually from our beneficiaries. And the beneficiaries are not the church. Okay, everybody has this thought that, oh, you're a Catholic home, you get the funding from the church. No, we don't get any funding from the church at all. All right, so we get basically from other donors other than that. Okay. So in terms of the staff strength, which I didn't mention earlier, we have about currently 182 residents, okay, and we have about 130 staff. Okay, out of the 130 staff, 98 of them are actually trained nurses from local as well as from overseas, and we have about 30 that are actually the supporting staff, the laundry, the cooks, the housekeeping. So I think I will just end off with this short verse like that. St. Theresa's home, actually, we the founders was actually St. Theresa of Avila. And one of our motto, which I instill in my nurses, is that we do little things with great love. So as long as you do anything for the resident, whichever small it is, but if you do it with great love, nothing is impossible. Thank you.
So I'd ask Noel the same question. Noel, you got the questions, right?
No, I don't remember. I don't remember.
So basically, where we were coming from is how the elderly perceive themselves and how the various challenges that they may have in their lives impact on their perception of themselves and their dignity and impact on their dignity. And also the final point, how does society itself perceive the elderly? If you can.
Yeah. So this is interesting. Actually, I cheated. I had a lot of time to think while Victor was talking. But what it is, I'll tell you a few stories because that's quite a few questions that you have. And I'll share a story about my mom. All right. So when I was younger, had my own place, etc., and still do. But I had my mom come stay with me, right? And by this time she was in her 80s anyway. So she stayed with me, and I thought that'll be good because it wasn't too far from where she lived. She come live with me. Fortunately, we've got a couple of helpers because we had like 3-4 kids. So with the helpers there, with the kids, she'd be happy, right? So I had her live with us. And initially she was quite happy because everything was done for her. She didn't have to, worry about the yard. She didn't have to worry about taking care of, telling the maid what to do, etc., etc. So she was quite happy. And unfortunately, after about a year of living with us, she suffered a stroke. A fairly minor stroke. She managed to recover from that. But increasingly, she was kind of withdrawn. Maybe she was aware of her, the fact that she couldn't move as freely as she did. But the good thing about it is being in Serangoon Gardens, like Victor, a lot of people it's like a little village, like a little kampong. So everybody knows everybody else. So they came to visit her, etc. And that made her very happy. As time went on, I noticed that she wasn't as cheerful. And she told me, she said, look, I want to go back to her own place, which was like, again, closer to the church, right? So she wanted to go back there. And I could not understand. I said, why? I said, you've got everything here. You've got your own room. The kids don't run in and disturb you when you're resting. I said, I couldn't quite figure it out. But anyway, we said, okay, fine. So we redid the place, her old house, and she lived there. And she seemed happier. And then, of course, as time went by, the kids would run up there and steal bananas from the kitchen and all that kind of stuff. And she was quite happy with that. It's only recently, after working with the Finns, by the way, Finns at SSVP, we call them Finns, which is friends in need, right? So those that we help. That I realized that what she actually wanted was she wanted control of her own life. Not everything had to be done for her. She wanted to say in when she did stuff, how she did stuff, how the maid would respond. And living with me, my family, everything was done for her, so she didn't have to think. And she didn't like that. It's only later on and recently that I kind of realized that. So what it tells me is really, as you get older, you still want to kind of hug on to your own life in a way, to have those decisions that you used to make, continue to make those decisions. And it's not about having everything done for you. It's not about putting your feet up in the air, watching TV all day. It's not about that, right? And that, for me, is about preserving that dignity of the person, which, as a son, I failed to see that. And I didn't see that at that point in time. So that was one of these things that kind of hit me years later. Another story that I'll tell you is actually my aunt. Okay, she's amazing. She's 91, but she lives alone in an HDB flat in Marine Parade. But every time I try to call her to get her out for lunch, she is like just waking up, and it's like 10 in the morning. I said, "What happened?" She says, "Oh, I was out partying last night." I was like, "Whoa!" I said, "You're a real party animal." So it's amazing, right? So again, we had the first question that says, how old you consider somebody who's considered elderly? I mean, she's 90, 91, and she's still partying. I mean, would you consider that old? And she told me something very interesting. She said, you know what? She says, if I want to get a seat on the bus, I make sure I do not dye my hair. Because when people see it's all black, they think I'm young, and therefore they will not give up a seat for me. So it's kind of an interesting insight. And that's, again, how society perceives, right? It's about the look as well. But she also told me something very interesting, and I wish we had Eric here. The people who give up seats for her on buses and MRTs are not Singaporeans. A lot of them are our foreign workers. So it's kind of sad for our society as a whole. And it goes to talk about, what does it take to actually help somebody age in society. Yeah, it's a whole village in a sense. So that's the other part on perception. But one thing that I do want to share, and it was shared earlier in the plenary session, was that Singapore, we're an aging society, no doubt about that. In a few years' time, we're going to be like super aging kind of thing. And as a society of St. Vincent de Paul, we have a lot of volunteers. And to be quite honest, a lot of our volunteers are actually quite old. And they're getting older. So we see that happening with our own members. And recently, actually just a few days ago, I had to talk to one of our members because he was complaining that he was taken off the list and the conference did not want him to attend meetings because he was being disruptive. And I go, how can that be? And we had to chat with him. And one thing that I realized during the chat was I kind of recognized the signs of early dementia because he could not remember things, right? And so for us as a society, our own members are getting older. How do we deal with that? Yeah. His family did not want to recognize that as well. It was kind of in denial. And I was talking to someone else the other day, actually Brother Thomas. I don't know if you guys know him. He's from the Brothers of Missionary Mercy. That's right. Yeah, so Brother Thomas was telling me, you're dealing with the early stage of dementia, and this is the most difficult stage to deal with. This is because the person who's having that condition doesn't recognize it, or maybe doesn't accept it. The family doesn't see it. And so this is the toughest stage. And that's what, as a society, as we go through an aging society, we ourselves are learning how to deal with this. When our own members are kind of going through this situation, how do we deal with it? How do we help them? Because now, instead of they giving help, they have to receive that. And sometimes it's really hard to accept that. Yeah. I don't have the answer, and I'm hoping with all of you here that you can give me the answer, at least nuggets of insight into it. But that's what we're faced with. Yeah. And one of the things that I did want to share was, as a member of SSVP, we are put into smaller groups, so groups of at least 3, because we never go out alone to visit our Finns, so groups of 3. And each group we take care of about maybe 5 families. Yeah, there was this lady this was back. We got to know her back in 2019, just before COVID. She took 2 of the COVID shots, and of course she blames it on the COVID, the mRNA jab, because she started going blind. Towards the end of the whole pandemic, she was completely blind. 94 years old, I think. And it was tough because she always wanted to go home. So there was once she fell because she's blind, trying to grope her way around, fell quite badly, broke her hip. And after that, the doctors said no, she wasn't in a condition to go home because there's nobody to look after her. So she had to go to a home. And about 2 weeks ago, she passed away. She's got nobody to even attend a funeral. She couldn't afford a funeral. And that's one of the things that at SSVP we do. We have a program called Dying with Dignity. So while we talk about living with dignity, there's also the piece about dying with dignity, to make sure that they do have a funeral and that they're sent off in the right way. She was Christian, she wasn't Catholic. We prayed for her. But that's part of the journey of growing old, especially for those that cannot afford it. We talk about, giving dignity to those alive, but that very last stage, I think we cannot forget that too. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Excellent. So I'm now going to ask from the Montfort.
Okay?
Yes. Okay. Do you need the question repeated again? No, you got it? Okay. You remember all 3 parts?
Okay. I think if you ask somebody who is 15, they will tell you they're a teenager, right? If you ask somebody who is about 25, they said that they are youth. Even at 35, they are youth. You ask somebody who's about 40, they'll say, okay, I'm an adult. By the time you hit 50, okay, I think they go into some crisis. Am I an elderly or am I an adult? But check from Google, they say at 65 is generally the traditional age where we say that is an elderly. So to me, I think elderly doesn't have any value. Today, if you ask people who are 65 about how do you feel about being 65, I think the answers is really different. I just went for a holiday with two 67-year-old elderly, and you ask them about, so how has it been in this age? They say, wonderful, because I can decide, which country I like to tour. I am able to have the luxury of deciding what I want to do with my life. You ask the elderly in Montfort Care, Good Life, depends which group you ask, okay? So if you ask those who are at maybe the program from Young and Heart, they say, wonderful, because at 65, I can still volunteer. I can choose to even be involved in teaching the younger generation. You ask those who are in Good Life Studio, they say, yeah, beautiful, now I can learn how to do biking, because I don't have time in the past, right? But if you ask some from Good Life who are under our casework management about how has it been for you being an elderly, they probably tells you that I think it's a burden to my family because I'm sick, I cannot contribute, I need somebody to care for me. You ask somebody who is so frail that is under our home bath, they probably say, I wish I could die. So I think how the elderly view aging really differs from their own personal experience, how they see themselves as a person, whether they have a faith that anchors them. So regardless of where I am still valued. It also depends on the interaction that they have with the people around them. If in their environment they have been responding to people who tells them that you are useless, then obviously being old is something that we will not look forward. But if interacting with an environment that tells them that they are not an object of charity, but they can still contribute, they can still be an asset to the society, I think that changed the way how they see aging in a sense. So I think the interaction is important, and how, as a society, I think we play a part. We have a lot to play. We have a lot to do. From a more macro view, I am appreciative because I know some of my friends who are here from MOH, that we are doing a lot to change the narrative of aging not being a liability. Aging is something that you can start to think about how you can enjoy your life. There's so many things that you can do. Volunteering is one, many others, yeah? And the other part, I think in Montfort Care, what we need to do in terms of changing the narrative is how we can bring into this space of aging the interaction between the younger generation. And I think it's important of how we can have more interaction between our younger people and our elderly, so that there are more of the narrative to change about what we perceive of each other and create the environment to make aging a little bit more positive. Yeah. Can? Like that? Can, no?
Can. as much as you like, Gail. Not enough. So just by way of summary, would you think that it's also a lot to do with our understanding of the elderly? Because your story sort of tells me that what your mum wanted was not so much what we perceived, 65, 95, whatever it may be, but trying to understand the person who has the need. So maybe it's us listening, or maybe us trying to understand. So it's perhaps more the society's need for education. Is that where you were coming from?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting piece of it. We talk about it takes a village to raise a child. It also takes a village to help someone age gracefully. right? And we forget that. We forget that because this person has been, especially our parents, right? They've been independent, they've been providing for us, and now the role is suddenly switched. That becomes the challenge. So I think it's really important that we do understand that whole process, and it's a cycle. Going back to the whole Ubuntu idea that was talked about this morning, it's really about doing things together. And so the age kind of thing where you support each other through the different stages of life is critical. It's critical for everybody from all the way from childhood to growing old gracefully, right? You need that. And understanding. Each generation has to understand the next as well.
We can add something, and I agree with Yai when he says that in an environment, if you place the elderly with the right people, and if the people actually encourages you and say that, yes, you are still useful, yes, it's true. But if in an environment when someone tells you that, every day you're like that, it's a burden to me, then that's it. It changed the whole entire perception of the elderly. So moving forward for St. Theresa's home, when we move into our new home, which hopefully to be built in 2027, we have, beside the nursing home, we also have a 150 bed where we call aging in place. Okay, this aging in place is actually targeting at the elderly who are still useful, and also we want to make them useful till the very last end. Okay? It's not that whether at what age you are in, you can still be as useful to anybody in society. Yeah.
Yes, please. Okay, go ahead. No. Go ahead. Okay, I'm going to ask you guys a question, okay? How many of you remember the movie on the show about Benjamin Button? Do you remember that? Okay, how many remember or saw the movie? And the title was called... Yeah. So for those of you who don't know about this character named Benjamin Button, so Benjamin Button was somebody who he came out from, I think, under a tree or somewhere like this, and he was really, really old and all wrinkled and all that. And then as time went on, the wrinkles went away. He became actually stronger. And basically the story is, as time went on, he became younger and younger and younger and younger. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, that's right. And he ended up as a gleam in somebody's eye. He ended up back as a baby. And I think life is like that, right? That's why we call it, as you age, you call it second childhood. Yeah, you go back to that. And at SSVP, it's quite interesting. We've got this program called the Milk and Diapers Program, where we help kids from the age of birth to 3 maximum. Beyond that, they don't qualify to be part of the program because they would have had the ability to actually consume, cooked food like us. But then we started a new program called SNAP. Again, we focus on nutritional needs for the elderly, and guess what? Diapers as well. So as kids, you need diapers. As we grow old, you need diapers again. So it kind of reminded me of the fact that it's one circle, isn't it?
And I think they think it's one circle too, because it's like, so if you ask my dad, he will say that, I'm old and unhappy and I feel entitled. So he feels that if he goes to if you take a bus, because he's old, he has, the walking stick. So he said that people needs to let me have the seat, so it's like, that like a little child, you need to give me because I should be, the care of everything. It makes it challenging actually, while we have all this thing about wanting to make it, nice, aging is process is nice, but I think it is a process of we need to do it together at a giving and a receiving end. Like I always remember in one of our service, the Good Life Makan at Block 52, we always have challenge of elderly coming, and they are very not judge, but I say, they come and say, this is what I want, and then our young people are, oops, I'm not sure how should I handle this elderly, because I don't think this is the way how it should be done. It's how to create a lot of conversation between these two group of people. And it has to start from us, I think. Then as an organization, I'm not sure about Victor or even, yourself, it's like, but Montfort itself needs to first of all create that culture among ourselves, because we have staff who are young and all the way, and we need to ask ourselves, are we okay employing somebody who is 65 and above? Because I'm going to ask that, are you going to employ me when I'm 70? If we are not ready, I'm not very sure how are we going to serve. So it has to be coherent, and that is challenging, because everything we do starts from ourselves. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I didn't agree. Okay. I mean, if you look at the elderly, they always tell you, I'm much older than you. I eat more salt than you do, So please don't tell me what to do, okay? But actually, whatever they are doing is actually all wrong. And it's true. Sometimes it's very difficult for us to actually, especially for those who are just recently admitted, and they are actually the matriarchs or the patriarchs of the home. Nothing will go. You just do whatever I tell you to do. That's it. Right. I mean, first in a nursing home, right? This happens.
Maybe we'll move on from there. I mean, I know we've seemed to be tripping over what the respective organizations are doing and what we perceive. So perhaps we can focus now specifically on your respective organizations and how you see yourselves playing a role in creating this ecosystem. I know you've mentioned some of the things that you've done, but you can start. We can start with Noel here, since he's got the mic in his hand. We can start with Noel. So perhaps he could tell us how SSVP looks at itself, being aware of all of this. Moving forward, right now, what are you doing currently to address this needs, the dignity of?
Yeah, so and that's a space that we're still continuing to learn, continue to evolve in that space. And like I said, earlier this year we officially launched the SNAP program, right, which is special needs. Help me out here. Okay, but it's basically handling the needs of those that are older. Again, those are the physical needs, but we're also having to learn how to deal with those that are, especially those suffering from dementia. One of the things to do is also to read the telltale signs, right? We've got one Finn that I remember, and he was quite robust when I first started to journey with him. And then over time, I noticed he was losing weight. So I said, maybe we could work with you and help you get an appointment at the polyclinic to get a checkup, because he was losing weight. And then we found out what happened. His sister, who started working, taking on a full-time job, wasn't around. And because the sister wasn't around, he skipped meals. So he would skip lunch, sometimes he would skip dinner, or you'd have dinner at very late hours. And again, that's the thing about the elderly as we journey with them. We've got to recognize these things because we know that they're going to skip meals. Yeah. So it's recognizing the signs. Recently, another one of my Finns, I'll call her Madam D, okay? Cannot reveal her name. But one of the signs about the elderly and those that are slightly poorer, and especially when they have rental flats, they tend to load up with a lot of things. Hoarding is one of those things that we see. And she was in hospital because she fell over and broke her, her shin. During her time in hospital, it was interesting. Nobody visited her, so we visited her, and we talked to her and just shared. She would share memories of what it was like growing up in Aokang. So it's quite interesting. I don't speak Mandarin, so my Mandarin isn't very good, but I do understand Teochew. Yeah. And so she would speak to me in Teochew, and she said, "It is amazing that you guys come and visit me, because it is what lifts my spirits. She's Methodist, right? So, and I was like, wow. I mean, and for me, so for us, the caregivers or the people that are visiting her, that was such a huge thing. It was better than giving me $100 to go visit her. Just the fact that I know that the 30 minutes that I spent with her actually had an impact. Yeah. When she was discharged, she did not call her family because she's got 2 sons. She did not call them. Instead, she called us to go and get her discharged. So you can see that, sometimes when you get older, it's the family bonds that are strained as well, because again, it depends on the family, how tight the family is. Now, my fear, and I told her this, I said, you've got so much stuff in your house. I said, you're going to trip over one of these things, then you're going to be back in hospital. I said, can we help you declutter the house? I'm still waiting for an answer from her, actually. But that's a risk, right? I mean, as you get older, these are the things that we need to watch out for. And so for our members, we kind of keep them in the loop. We tell them what are the things to look out for, especially if they're elderly. And that's about the thing we can do, because we journey with them. And a lot of times, as I mentioned, what they want is somebody to talk to. That is the most important thing. A few years ago, we had this talk by Gerard E. And he was sharing with us, when he spoke to people and especially those that receive aid from Willing Hearts. They deliver the food to the homes. And a lot of times, these old folks do not actually eat the food delivered. What they want is that 10 minutes of time to talk to the person delivering the food. Yeah. So as a volunteer organization, again, it's making sure that we don't rush through it and we actually spend the time to talk to them. So the challenge we have as well is we have also younger members who all they do is they provide their rations, right? So we give them rations. If the person isn't in, they'll slip it under the door and then off. But they don't realize how much that time to actually connect means. And we've had cases, 2 cases, where once the money was, the rations were slipped under the door, and it was found out a week later that that person actually had died, and nobody knew. Yeah. Another one case, they kind of realized something was wrong because there was food left outside. And so they called the police. Police said, no, we can't open the door. And so they called SCDF. They opened it. They found the guy, he had fallen down, unconscious, but he was just barely alive. And he had apparently been in that state for about 3 days. So it's important that as our society, SSVP, we don't just, go through the motions of handing in, but really connect with those that we care for and journey with. It's that personal interaction that's so important.
Absolutely. I take this point that Noel's raising. I think your mum, I have a 95-year-old mum as well. So I know about what you just said. Just going over or picking up the phone and calling her for 2 minutes on the way home means more than everything else. So yeah, it sounds like that's a very, very important aspect. Just that interaction. And I think perhaps based on what we've been hearing so far, it seems like perhaps we may be lacking this understanding. I'm not sure how or whether that's accurate, but maybe society doesn't have that understanding, what I was saying just now. Maybe we can ask your perspective on this.
I think it's sometimes we perceive that what their needs are. For elderly, we think they need this. And then when in the past, I think some of the mistakes that we made a long time ago, in Montfort Care, we used to think, okay, the elderly probably needs friends, which they do. So we had this idea of like running a cell group type in back then, the old good life. We perceive this is what they want, and we perceive that, okay, I think neighbors will be the best. So when we kickstart and run this, thinking that they'll be very happy, right, to only realize that each of the cell group, in that sense, where the seniors should be gathered together, they didn't turn up. Then it's only then later we discover that actually this is what we think, actually to them, we can be good neighbors, but to come to my house to have all these sessions, sorry, I'm not interested. And they tend to quarrel, and when they quarrel, they don't become friends, and then they don't come. So I think there's a lot of, I like what you share, is perceived. I think the only way to get through this is to hear their voice. So I think in Montfort Care, to answer your question, what we are mindful and we will have to be reminding ourselves that for every program that we have, every solution that we're going to do, we better hear the voice of the people who is going to benefit, and they should be the seniors. That's one. So in that co-creation, we need to involve them. Of course, this will take a bit more time. So we need to go and tell our bosses, sorry, give us a bit more time to do the needs assessment. Then the second is to actually involve them and part of the creation of the solution. So they can come, give a voice, they can participate, they can volunteer, and then they give feedback. This whole thing is going to be a long drawn, but it is needed if we are looking at having their needs met. So of course the other area that we are soon going in is really about end of life. I think Noel was sharing about aging is, the dignity is really about in control. Even at my death, I want to decide how I want to die. So I think we are going into this area to really start having conversation like this, so that we want you to decide how you want to do it. Yeah.
Would you like to share any of the programs that you're currently doing?
Okay, I think some have been shared during the by my CEO. Like we have in Montfort Care, we have 7 we call the Good Life Studios. You probably it's like we are called Active Aging Center. But Montfort Care, we like to be a bit more atas, so we call ourselves Good Life Studios, so that for people like me who is 50 feel, I love it. So we have 7, and it's really different location where there are a lot of like activities, program that hopefully engage us, so to encourage us to have lifelong learning. Yeah, and for some who probably require a bit more of like touch point, some like what you say, calling to make sure that they are well, okay, then that is also part of the services under the Good Life Studio. Yeah, we have Good Life Makan, of course, at Marine Parade. Like just this afternoon, we actually got a cafe, and it's pet cafe, okay. So that we encourage the elderly to come, not only to be the recipient, they are supposed to be the contributor. So when you go there, you see all the very nice auntie uncles who are actually serving, and all donations, right, goes to helping the frail elderly. Yeah, so we also have home personal care for the more frail group of elderly. That's where we will go to their house and offer services that will help them age in place lah. Yeah.
Thank you. Victor, you have actually... Hey, Father, hi, come, please. Sure. You want to add on? Sure.
Hi, I'm Father Matthew. I'm a Jesuit. But 10 years ago, I was attached to Caritas, and that's where I wrote the paper, Partnering the Poor, and I really know the works of many of the organizations. Coming from being groomed by Brother Emmanuel, I know his approach, and the dignity of the person is very important. But since then, I've done a CPE, a clinical pastoral experiment. My mom has died, living in Villa Francis for about 5 years. So I know the stage of life. And when she entered in 2017, I already was prepared that she will be on tube feeding by the end of the year. But guess what? When you have a good geriatrician who believes in the dignity of life, I'm talking about Philip Yap and all that, they reduce her medications. And so she came around. When she entered, she had to be turned in bed, but she came out well enough. She went on a wheelchair. She could brush her own teeth. She put on her makeup. I had to buy the lipsticks. I have no sisters. She chose her clothes. And I think that's the dignity. But as she declined, I also noticed one thing. I think I can share a bit more with Noel and all that. We come from the same background. What was important for her, Mom has always taken care of our life. But as she aged, she still needed to care for people. So the Hong Yu I buy, I need to buy more. The lozenges that she likes, I need to buy more because this nurse cough, so she needs. The auntie has got nothing. Can you buy more powder for them? Because I think all of us have gone through a stage of life when we care for others, and if we lose that, we lose our human dignity. There were a few words that I picked up. First of all, you need to decide. So I work with others in pastoral care. I'm part of a group that has a dementia fellowship in our parish as well. So I see some of that. Being a priest, I hear a lot more things which even the social workers don't hear. And I think some of these things is this, they're estranged from the family. But what they need most is somebody to talk to them. I wish Eric was here because I have a lot of feedback for him. Don't quote me, But the fact is this, how did we have this called rough sleepers came about? It was because of CWS going on and walking and reaching out to the homeless. So for us, we call this civil societies. We have always got to push the limit. But the government will always have to come back in the back itself. The government has one setback, which we civil organizations do not. They have a KPI, and they have to justify cost-benefit analysis. And that will be good. That will always be good. At least they look into it. But what about us? It's where we can be. Sadly, in our system, we are very functional. Yes, we provide, right, SSVP. I was in charge of SSVP as well. We provide the food, but we forget that actually that's not what you want. I think CWS has a night mission. And some of us from the charismatic group, they've gone. And we reach out to the homeless. And when a few of us were doing the Geylang apostolate, very exciting, we go among the girls. But we have the women protecting us. It's the dignity that they want to experience. So when the homeless were approached by volunteers from our church, they say, thank you, I don't need the small thing. But what I look forward is that conversation. And I think that's something that is all within us. Our society has gone very functional. We were talking about, we have so many assistant programs that's there, right? I don't know what save, you save this, save that, save. Our new Prime Minister, Len Popo, also has a lot of suggestions. You know who's Len Popo or not? Oh, you haven't seen that? You haven't seen that one? Yes, our new Prime Minister look like Len Popo. It's going out. It's going out. You haven't picked that up. But the point is this. You and I can do something, right, sister? She's the naughty sister of another Jesuit. But we are good friends. The point is this. We don't wait for somebody else. We don't wait for an organization. There are a few other thoughts that I have. I live in Philippines. I live in Cambodia long enough to see different things. We always have very good rationalizations, like this auntie and all that selling tissue papers and all that. Sometimes it's not about their need for money. Sometimes it gives them something to do for that day. Sometimes it is coming out from their one-room flat or getting away from the family to have interaction with others. Sometimes it's about, in short, it's about dignity. I'm getting the money myself. And I think that was something good which the government did. Legally, we don't have beggars on our streets, but they can sell paper tissues and it gives them some dignity. I earned that. I'm not just having a free handout. And I think seeing the social mission conference over these decades and all that is to be a chance for us to relook at how we look at these things. I'm getting involved with this man in St. Theresa's home. But I'm thinking of, apart from going for Thomas, what can I do? I qualify in the, preparing. I am legally, medically approved to be dementia already. So then what about others? Okay, let me tell you a bit more about the Dementia Fellowship group in our church. I call it the D Fellowship, like D Leiden, you know, rather than that, but we call it a senior fellowship. And as I look at the volunteers, if you come to the group, there are some other churches who are starting to come, you will not notice the difference between the volunteers and the participants. They're basically of the same age group. And some of the volunteers can't do much. They're basically there doing the registration, but they give them something to do. There's a dignity. Among the older parishioners, they have started a group called the Beloved, although you can see the Beloved. And they're coming together to do things that they want. Holy Cross has got Golden Disciples. This is something that a few of us feel that we need in our church. We know the statistics. I think 2/3 of the priests are 60 and above. But what are we doing about? We are in the office of young people. What about the older people? The government, I think, since 2017 or 2007, has kicked in certain protocols. Like this is no more approved because it has to be wheelchair friendly, and so on and so forth. But rather than wait for organization, institution to do something, what can you do? And I think sometimes it starts from looking at inside our families, even our peers. My brother lives alone, so I make the effort to call him every night, you know, even if it's just 2-3 minutes. But I think the connection is important for all of us. Maybe we are on the side where we need the interaction. Maybe we could be the one to start. Let's start doing something. Thank you.
Yeah, without a doubt, I think it has to start here for all of us. And I think we know that's why we're sitting here. And I think that's why we've gathered here, because we understand that this is such an important thing. But Father's led us on actually to, sorry, unless any one of you wanted to comment on what Father said. Otherwise, I was just going to, Father's led us on actually to an important question actually. How can these organizations seated here, I know Father has raised the point that it should come from here, and I agree with that totally. I think we all are on the same page, but perhaps we can ask these organizations what they think of how we could help them. So who would like to go first? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Okay. Come and join us. I think there are so many needs. Now I remember Father Matthew. Okay, you still look the same. Okay, anyway, yeah. Okay, I see. We need. The harvest is. Harvest is here. The servants, the worker are always few, and you said that it needs a community. So I do think we need the people here to come and together with us. We play a different role. I love what Father says, that you'll be surprised that maybe the elderly feels more, they will share more secrets with you than with us. They're very scared to tell the social workers too much thing in case, but I'm sure they tell you more, okay? So join us in this journey in making this place a safer place for our elderly.
So they give you a call.
You have Montfort Care's email, so just buzz us. And if not, you can go to Caritas. You can do it together as a group. I think Kevin from Caritas has been a very good RM for us. Yeah, so you can either go through Caritas or you can also just email Montfort Care.
Okay. I'd leave the question a little bit wider in the sense of, apart from just joining you, is there something else that you see perhaps could address this problem within the community, strengthening the ecosystem for the welfare and the well-being of the elderly? So yes, from your organization's point of view, and any other points you'd like to throw out there, because after this we can open up the floor for discussion. So if you have some thoughts, some views, Pat, I can come back to you again, or you have to I go along to the guys.
Okay, I can maybe talk a bit different, okay? For Yai and Noel, I think they're more on the brighter side, where the elderly are still able, to do a lot of things they want to do. Okay, for my home, I'm doing something very different and I need volunteers for these, okay? It's not good, but I guarantee you it is really very satisfying, okay? What I'm talking is actually journeying with the dying, okay? We believe in St. Teresa's home that no one dies alone. So during that critical period, most of the time, this person is always alone. So we are actually looking for volunteers. We will train you, we will tell you what to do. And I believe sisters here will also understand dying is something that is hard to accept. Not only for the family members, but even for as workers of the home. I've journeyed with a few of them, and I think that the last minute of the last breath can be quite touching. I'll share with you my experience. When I started this, I didn't know all about this, okay? When I joined, actually helping out with the Little Sisters in 2003, and it was at one of the session where Sister said, Victor, would you like to join me to journey with the dying? I said, journey with the dying, what is that? Then he brought me to this lady who is already gasping and said, Victor, we do not let her die alone. We shall go with her. So initially I don't know what to do. So Sister said, just hold her hands. So while holding her hands, we started to say the rosary. Okay. Each decade of the rosary, I feel her hand squeezing my hand. I know I was worried. I said, will she ever let go of my hand? Otherwise, if she goes, I also don't know how, right? Oh, I was really a bit worried. So Sister said, don't worry, just pray, just pray. Okay, so I continue my rosary. See? Each decade, her hands, wow, for a woman who is so skinny, but her last strength is really very strong, I won't be able to break away from her grip. But at the last decade of the rosary, when Sister whispered to her ear and said, go back to the Lord. And I saw her breathing her last, and the moment when she closes her eye, breathe her last, she releases me. For the moment, I was happy because my hand is free now. But then I realized she did not die alone. She died with someone. Okay, so from that point, I realized that actually dying or journeying with the dead can be very touching. It can be very how can't express it, you see. Okay, the other part that I can share with you is one of the priests that I look after. Okay. For a priest, my father is there, right? They are afraid of dying. I thought priests, when they die, they go heaven, right? You see, right? No such thing. I'm a priest, when I go, God would take me heaven. But this priest literally tell me, Victor, I'm afraid of dying. I said, Father, why? He says, I really do not know where I'll be going, I said, Father, you sure go heaven? Sure or not? Yeah, and that was exactly what he shared with me. Okay, so I did actually, was with him, but unfortunately, he was actually asked to go to the hospital. So I was unable to actually journey with him. He died at the hospital, you see. So, in terms of what we are doing now, we do lack volunteers, but it's just open right now. There's no, if you feel like this is your calling, and you think that you want to give it a try, then yeah, you're most welcome. We have actually one volunteer that pretty good, you see. So we don't immediately put you with the dying first, we let you journey with those good ones first, right? Then after that we will tell you, say, okay, in these two beds, these are the people that need help. Of course, they won't die immediately. So we let you get acquainted with them, spend time with them. And I guarantee you, all right, whatever you do for this lady or this man, I can't express the feeling, but the feeling is really pretty good lah, after what you have done for him. Yeah, that's it.
Wow, that's really good. So just a quick question. How many of you are actually volunteering today with some organization that helps others at this point? Okay, all right. Well, you don't have to limit yourself to only one organization. You can actually join more than one. It's true. It's true. Okay, so I'm just gonna share something with you. I'm not. This is not SSVP in any way. Okay, but one day, I mean, my son, who's at that time he was about 18 years old, and I was playing chess with him, and every now and again we'll play chess and stuff like that. And he actually beat me this time. I go like, wow, how did that happen? And he told me this story. He said what happened was at SJI he had to visit once a week. They had to visit this home for the aged, and he said this old man. He would always visit this old man, and this old man taught him how to play chess. And on top of that, this old man, during playing chess, would also tell him about stories of what happened in World War II. And he loves war stories, right? So he'd go to my uncle's place and share stories. And what I realized that he was actually very inspired by this elderly man. So what I learned from it is, it's not what the elderly get from us or those that we help, it's what we get from them as well. Sometimes it's so much more. And so being a volunteer and helping with whatever calls out to you is actually, in some ways, maybe it's helping yourself as well.
Thanks so much, Okay, we've come to the part of the afternoon where we're opening it up to the floor. Maybe the panelists have questions for you. You have questions for the panelists. So we're going to open it up to the floor, and anybody with questions for our eminent panel, please. Any thoughts, perhaps even on that last issue of what we can do, perhaps? That's where we were just now. And one of the issues that was raised is, join an organization. I think that's wonderful. What else? If you can't, or is there something else perhaps you'd like to share? It doesn't have to be a question. It can just be something you'd like to share from your own lives that perhaps, as we said earlier, may inspire our panelists to take back to their organizations. Anything anybody would like to share? Yes. Just.
Thank you. I just want to introduce myself first. I'm a stranger. I'm a foreigner from Belgium, but I've spent some time in Singapore. And I just wanted to confirm, what has been said about care for the dying. I've been involved in the Hospice Care Association since the early days in Dr. N. Merriman and so on. And the truth is, that you get more out of it yourself than what you can give. And having looked after various dying patients at home, it really taught me a lot of things in life, and I'm grateful for that. So I just wanted to confirm that care for the dying is something worth considering.
Yeah, sure. Wanted to your views about this gap in feelings. Sometimes I'm in conundrum. So just I think a real life case example. So this hawker center that I go to, there's this cleaning lady. She's in her 60s, which is really quite frail. So there was goodness encouraged. We're not supposed to be clear when she's alone. So I actually got scolded by her hearing. She thought I was taking away her job, and so subsequently I went back back to the same center, and I decided to just wait for her to clear English, and then I got screwed by someone else. That's supposed to be carrying conversations. So how do we address the comments? When we really want to do something for this killing baby, I think for her to clear conscious, she feels it's a job, and it could be something that she feels a little bit herself or more. And while at the same time, deal with perception of others, how they perceive me. So I find that sometimes that can be a little bit of a struggle.
Maybe can I take that instead? I mean, I'm a caregiver, so one of my uncle, and I think y'all know that my profession is a social worker. I think that question is very relevant, and it holds dearly in my heart. Every day is a struggle. When I care for my uncles, for the 80-year-old uncle, he basically, at the end of the stage of his life, he actually lost control of his bowels. So he will, urine around the house and toilet, passing his motion. And I struggle. As a social worker, I know that if I force him to wear the diapers, it's going to take away his dignity. And if I don't do that, either he will fall or my mom will fall. So internally, I struggle a lot. And with this understanding of dignity, I hold that to the best that I could and to let him really carry out. And we got to clean up the house every day. Every time when he do it, we will just clean up. So in my professions, there's always this thing called risk assessment, and we are very concerned because as organizations, we have liability and we have to take care of our seniors. And if my senior says, I'm not going to eat today because I really don't feel like, and it's very hard to swallow. Then as social worker, then do we take actions to, activate all the system to kind of care for her, or what do we do? So I don't think we have a quick solution, but as an individual, just now when Miss Hannah actually said, what can I do as an individual in my profession, and as well as my, daily when I'm caring for my elderlies, what I do is go back to them and is there a cut-off that, both of us can actually agree on? I hope that gives a bit of tips, and I think it's not easy. We really have to struggle dignity versus basic needs.
Okay, can I add to that? Okay, I experienced the same thing with you, okay? When I want to help this lady, okay, why she's worried because if her supervisor sees that somebody else is doing a job, she will lose her job. Okay, so for that, I literally went to speak to the supervisor. So I told the supervisor, because when I saw her carrying the bowl, I said either she's going to drop all the bowls or she's going to hurt herself. So in order not to, she wants to do her work. So what I did is that I carry whatever I need just next to the area, basically the place where they put in all the for them to wash. I will carry it just next to it. So she just basically carried it and slide it in. So they would cut the time from her to carry all the way to the use tray or the reuse the area, you see. And that actually, she feels good because she's also doing her work, but don't have to walk all the way. That's number one. Number two, she knows that the supervisor knows we are helping her. She won't lose her job. That is how it works.
So the idea of win, win, win. Everybody gets their piece.
No. I was gonna share with you guys. I don't know if you guys heard this story, but it's similar to that. It was a Singaporean family who were in France, and they carried their own tray back, etc. And then they upset the unions because the same thing. The unions got upset, so they had to. Then the police were called in, and they had to prove to the police that they were Singaporeans, and in Singapore, that's what we do. I don't know if you remember that was it was on radio one of those days, and I heard it. I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah. Anyone else? Perhaps. Yes.
To share on this particular so before I work where I stay. So what I do is that I let them do I go into the dish bag. I try to time the cleaner in a way that because it's very hot and very sweaty day, so after we want food, I bought a dessert for ourselves, but I go and buy 2 boxes of dessert and give to her. So I think she appreciated, and she was very shocked looking at me like, but I just thank you for helping us. That's one thing. Another way of talking about the dignity, my mother is a stroke patient, 50 years already. He can he's not completely bedridden and was, but now he can. With his limb power, he can walk around the house. Refused to wear diaper. Yes, okay. My mother is 80 plus. Plus, he has prostrate now, so his urine cannot control the urine. So what we do, okay, in the morning you walk around the house, don't wear diaper, but at night time you insist because they wash all the whole bags, it's very difficult. So we have to get the palliative care people to talk to him and make him understand. Because I stay in Singapore, my mother is in India and she's okay at home. So we literally have to tell the palliative care doctors and the nurses who come every month this room and say that please try to make him understand that he can get back source because just past you, he not realize it. So through that way, he made him understand. At night time, we wait for us to put the diaper, but morning, whole day, we want the diaper. So this way, it's like a win-win situation. We try to save my mother's burden, lessen her burden. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Is anybody else had a question or another observation? Yes, please.
That's one earlier. So the care of the question is first, so this is but in order to reach these students, we have
Okay, maybe I can take this. I think we also see that there's coming trend that there are more elderly taking care of elderly. Like elderly even like elderly who are siblings taking care of each other. Yeah, so I think as far as AAC is concerned, I think of course under the AAC there's this befriending portion that we can go into the house and befriend and give emotional support. I think since last year there's much talk about caregiver. I think it's still in a very much initial stage, but then there are pockets of services that still can come in and offer the support that's being required by caregivers who are elderly. Yeah, so I think the best place to go is, there's this mental health program that called Quest that they can call if they have issues. If not, they can call. I'm sure when you press you find Google, help for elderly caregiver. I'm sure there's a lot of hotline that will come up. Yeah. So I agree. It is still. I think there's still a lot more that we can do for now. Caregiver who are elderly. Yeah. And if you have ideas, I think this is where the community comes in, where you are on the ground. I think hopefully this also provide a platform that we can share some of this idea. And if some of this idea Montfort Care can incubate and see, I think we're more than happy. Yeah.
Thank you. Answer the question. Anybody else? We still have time maybe for 1 or 2 more. Yeah.
You say elderly, is there any age? We also have special need people who need care. I'm one of the opposite side, that's why I'm asking. So is that we can tap on to this elderly caregiving for this, especially people that...
I don't think so, because it's really the services will be tapped by the biological age. So if it is somebody who has special needs but have not hit 65, then I think it will be SG enabled, is it? Another services, yeah.
What's this? Special needs child, younger child. Yeah, so I'm not sure. There's someone else, sorry.
I just wanted to address to what she has mentioned. I think for someone with special needs, if let's say there are some physical disability because sometimes there may be people with multiple disability, so it could be intellectual, it could be physical. If they do require like physical support, there are actually existing services that could support them. For example, like if let's say you need someone to go into the house to provide support for the caregivers to look after this person, programs like home personal care actually do covers people who are younger. If let's say it's strictly just intellectual disability, then it will actually be covered under the more the disability segment. But it depends on, again, I think it depends on if let's say this person with very severe intellectual disability, it may actually affect their physical as well. So in that sense, it can actually still be supported by some of these programs that I mentioned just now. Yeah. Because I shared that because actually in our home personal care, we do actually take in, we have this as young as 24 years old person who is actually suffered from very severe autism. And she was in our program. Yeah. I'm Montfort Care. Thank you.
Actually, if I could just add on, Monterey Oaks deals with adults with intellectual disabilities. So the minute your child is an adult age, depending on whichever point on the spectrum, as long as they are self-independent to a point, Monterey Oaks would be able to take them.
But they say that what I do is pretend and what they don't have. So there's lots of these small gaps.
Oh, I'm sure we're not perfect yet. So this is where this kind of feedback, this kind of sessions are so important. Unfortunately, on this panel, we can't quite assist, but I think this is where you need to give that feedback to the relevant groups. I know you sound like you've tried very hard.
Ministers, I went to meet Mr. Chua, I gave feedback to Mr. Chua, and I went up to Mr. Su because I had got MSF and SG Naval. 10 years I've been following. My son is 27 now. They said wait for 2030 master in Breakout. I said, want to wait until my son's go to 2030. He said, want to do what?
Yeah, it sounds like you have a challenge on your hand. Wish you, we wish we could help on our side, but we'll pray. Yeah. Yes. We've sort of come to the end of the time that we have. I think there are other activities planned for this afternoon. Am I right? Is this correct?
So right before you leave, thank you so much. There will be tea break right after this, but we do need you, if you can help me, to scan this QR code because we would like to get your feedback. Hang on, give me some time. Okay, there we go. Just scan this QR code, give us your feedback, and then you may adjourn back to the canteen right after that for tea break. And then after which there'll be more instructions given to you at the canteen. Once you're done with this, don't leave yet because we want to take a group picture with everybody.